Good morning. I see we got Andrew here, but we don't have Rick. So
nobody has been in all of them, except you.
Good morning. Glad to be here. First, I'd like to start off at least talking about a couple of things from this past weekend, and then go forward to what we're going to do this week. I'd like to give a huge thank you and appreciation to Danny Zimmerman and his group for the work that they did with the blessing of the cruise and the beginning of Mardi Gras. Certainly one of the things that makes us a little unique in the Gulf Coast is Mardi Gras, and Pensacola is no stranger to participating in that along with the other sister cities along the Gulf Coast. I certainly think we have the oldest and the best Mardi Gras in Florida, and certainly one of the best on the Gulf Coast. And I think it got started off in a very good way. Palafox really was able to shine on Saturday night with the blessing of the cruise. So I thought Danny's group did an excellent job. It was great to see so many people downtown enjoying the night and participating in how lively it was. So I was glad to be a part of that. The other thing that was a little bit interesting, certainly over this weekend, we certainly were glad to get a Triumph member from Escambia County, and certainly understand it was our former mayor here. So we hope that will help us in dealing with Project Titan as we move forward on Triumph. We'll have hopefully we'll have an ally for Triumph. I will say that Stephen Lynn with ST Aerospace will be in town tomorrow. We were supposed to have lunch and get together and talk about things where we are and how we're moving forward. So I'm excited about that as we continue to move forward. Other things that are really happening at this point is getting out in the public for both us and for the transition team. I think last week it started, but the transition team members will be having several meetings in the public this week. So we'll be out and about and several places. Mainly, a lot of them will take place here, but we will have several that will be outside this area, both on the west side of town, all the way up to the north side of the town. I think next week on the 15th we have a meeting on January 15th for a community listening session for all the groups at Asbury Place. So I think all of the members of the transition team are doing a good job trying to get out there and schedule meetings. So I really appreciate them moving forward with that. For us, it's continuing to take care of a couple things. I see Derek here. I know we got a couple of things we got to take care of, both some drainage issues that we have, and we will continue to address those. And two, we also have some issues with our state roads and some of the things that we have. We certainly had one at Garden and Jefferson, and I know Derek told me about that when we saw some others. That's actually a DOT state inlet, and we're trying to work with them to get that unclogged so that we don't have that problem. But we're looking at several. I think I was on the radio this morning with 1370, and they were saying that I think this year we had a record year in rainfall as it ended in December, and our people in our engineering department certainly know that and know the challenges that we're having to deal with. We're trying to get out there and doing as good a job as we can, but if there are places where we have not been able to make something happen, then we ask for you to please let us know, and we will get that done. We'll get out there and try to address that. But outside of that, that's kind of the things that are in front of us. Sort of like we've learned what are the things that are in front of you and that we can answer for you. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Mayor, you going to the inauguration tomorrow?
I will not be going. I'm not going over there. We talked about it, but I couldn't get. It was difficult getting a few meetings. Plus the fact that ST is going to be here tomorrow really made it more important for me to be here than there. So it just, when that sort of happened that Stephen was going to be here, it made it more important for me to be here, I think, and catch up with him. So I will not be there tomorrow.
Okay, well, talk a little bit, if you will, about the transitioning both here and in Tallahassee, about working with the new administration.
We look to get together. I know that seeing Chris in the back has been working on getting us together a chance to go over there and begin to meet some of the different agencies that'll be there, with the same agencies, but they'll certainly have new people in them. We'll be looking to do that. We're also looking to deal with committee weeks and beginning to deal with the legislature. So, we will be going over there in late January and looking forward to getting over there at that time and beginning to meet some of those people. I think a lot of it is much like us. They're going to be just settling in our first month here. We're all over the place, but I think we're getting more settled. So there's no doubt probably the first month for them is going to be a little bit crazy as well. But we'll try to stay over there and stay in front of them. We will be going over in late January over to Tallahassee.
Thank you.
Is FDOT still a source you're looking for type money from?
Yes. I think the important thing is to realize it's not necessarily in this current year, and we continue to deal with that. The challenge is legislatures don't appropriate stuff from year to year. But this is why we want to meet and see if there's a way we can get perhaps in the future years, just in an out year. We obviously would have to get an appropriation in that year. But again, this is why we think there are multiple different ways for us to work this and continue to keep moving forward and trying to explain that we don't need it all this year, and we don't need it this year. We don't need it all at one time, and we can work between state and Triumph. I think we're confident we're going to be able to find a way to get there. I can't tell you what that's going to look like at this point, but I can tell you that's what we're going to look to do.
The meeting today for City Council on scheduling. We kind of talked about this before, but this is more lobbying than question asking, I guess. Jim and I, who have to cover both these meetings, would love if you could stagger against the county commission and not have same nights. And you plan to go for a twice a month meeting? Well,
I see Don Crayer just walking in, so I think the council president and myself have talked. We both advocated that we thought perhaps more meetings would be more efficient for us to be able to handle the system and not be so late into one meeting. It's created challenges for us because we're trying to get on the schedule for the January meeting, several things last week, and if we didn't make that meeting, then we've got to wait a whole month before we come back again. And it would be, I think it would make things flow a little quicker. I know it's 2 meetings, but something about dividing up the time and making it a little bit easier to get things scheduled from a staff perspective and making sure that you're hitting something, and so that you don't load up a bunch of issues on one meeting, I think is the other thing that happens. So, it's their meeting, but I know the council president has expressed the same interest, and I know that's what they want to talk about this afternoon. From that standpoint, we certainly don't want to, we want to do them the second and fourth Thursday. I think this month, obviously, coming out of the new year is a little bit challenging. I think we're going to end up on the same night, and I think it sometimes happens it happens sometimes. I remember being at the county in July and December. We have that just because of the way the holidays sometimes schedule, 4th of July and Christmas. Sometimes you end up, but generally we will make sure, we'll do our best to make sure that our meetings are not the same as the county commission meetings, so that, but we may have it so that every Thursday night you've got something going on. Unless there's a 5th Thursday of the month, and then you may have nothing going on. But that should be it. Any other questions? Yes, Jeremy.
Vernon had teased us earlier about a joint meeting between the city council and the county commission. Do you foresee that happening?
We are meeting on the 8th. That's another thing that is happening on the 8th. On Tuesday, we'll be having our second meeting with the commission. We'll be going over to Escambia County this time, going over there to the 4th floor, and we plan to talk to them and see about how we could schedule that up.
Just you and staff?
Just myself right now and the chairman, correct, but we do want to bring all the boards together, and we do want to do that. We haven't set it at this particular time, but we'll probably be talking about that on Tuesday.
Okay, and what are some of the things besides the homeless issue that you'll be addressing together?
There probably are a number of things: economic development opportunities, workforce, several things that are coming out of the transition team. I think you'll see some things that they're city related, but they tie into how the city and the county work together. So I think there will be opportunities for many discussion items for us to look at and see how we can work together. At this particular time, we're just working through on some things and going forward with where we were last time. I think that was one of the big issues, but we're still trying to evaluate, is there an opportunity for us to work with the clinic that they have and deal with our health care? What would be the cost on that if we'd have some cost savings? And again, if we can find a way to partner with them, if there are any other opportunities like that, we'll continue to look at those. Jim?
Friday night, there was kind of a scary incident downtown, and with downtown Pensacola being such a high-profile spot, there's been incidences there in the last 6 months. Has the city looked at any security measures, improving security downtown? And if so, what are those?
I spoke a little bit to it last week, and first I want to thank the Pensacola Police. I mean, they did a great job responding quickly to that event and making sure that it was controlled and moved out, and a lot of things could have happened, and I'm glad they didn't. They moved swiftly to make that happen and get that person in custody. So I really appreciate that. There's no doubt that they would like to have more people sort of present in those areas. One of the things that's been curtailing us is getting to that full level of staffing, that 152 sworn officers, and we'll actually probably need a couple more than that because we'll need some additional supervisory. I talked with Chief Leiter over the weekend. While we were talking about this incident on Friday, we talked on Saturday, and he assured me that this is part of where he's trying to get to as he staffs up. Our next class is coming through in February, and we'll put a class through the academy on February, and hopefully when they come out in May, we'll have full numbers, and we'll be able to have additional staffing downtown. That's generally what helps the best, is having boots on the ground and making sure that we have the right people there.
Has there been any discussion about, as far as partnering with local businesses for the police to use their security cameras?
We did. We have had that discussion. I think Southtown is putting out their. They put out their surveillance cameras. I've talked with Bobby Switzer and some of the other landlords in the Palafox area. Is there a way that they could that they could continue to do more surveillance as they're doing on their buildings, and be able to share that information with us, so that we can know it's there. We just don't have enough people to be every single place. We're trying to be more present, but certainly surveillance does allow for us to do that. The county, the city will certainly be looking at things like the Jefferson Street parking deck that are city assets. But when it comes to actually private buildings, that's where they can partner. And we have been talking with Southtown, with Bobby Switzer, with some of the other property owners in the Palafox corridor about looking at doing more surveillance and us being able to have access to some of that surveillance to ensure that we see things that are potential threats before they actually come and are able to address them faster.
Do we have any more details on the now versus then pit slip, cost, benefit, revenue, tax base, anything like that yet?
We don't have anything at this particular time. We're continuing to work with that. It will not be coming in January like we had thought. Obviously, there's some issues that we got to continue to work out. I think at the primary issue for both this council and this administration is neither of us calls the issue of the $500,000 in legal fees. We're having to live with that. So that's going to be a cost we're going to have to deal with, whether it's through the sale of the property or something going forward. So, but again, one of the challenges we have is knowing what the taxes that are paid right now are not nearly the taxes that would be paid if it was fully assessed at market value, and if you also had the additional boathouses that are being proposed by Mr. Russenberger. I have no idea what those would bring in additional, but those would be taxed and fully taxed at ad valorem. So, at this particular time, I don't know what the detail is, the swap one way or the other versus the lease. we know one thing's for sure, after going all the way through court and spending a significant amount of funds, the lease fees will be the same as they are, through the remainder of the lease, which I believe is about 27 years. So we won't be changing the lease structure within the lease. So with that being the case, it'll move forward, and that's what we would collect, and we'd have to figure out how to. If we don't do anything, then we'll have to figure out how to pay the $500,000 in attorney's fees. So at this particular time, that's probably what we'll be dealing with. That are sort of the knowns. The unknowns will be what would Chris Jones assess it at if it was fully private, and what the additional improvements would bring in. We don't know what that would be.
You sound less committed to the sale than you
Yeah,
were last time.
I am as committed to the sale. I think at the end of the day, I would rather spend. I can either spend cash or I can spend assets. And at this particular time, for me, there are plenty of things. I think when we see what's going to be coming down from the transition team and other things, that there'll be places for us to make differences in the community by spending money. I'd hate to be hamstrung and have no money to be able to spend because we spent it on legal fees incurred by the past administration. That's not what I want to do. So I'm committed to finding a solution. I just think it's not as it's a little bit more challenging because of some of the way the leases are. Certainly the federal leases that were acquired there are a little bit different than the state leases. So we're continuing to work through that issue.
I think you said last week that the sale of the property would actually increase public access to the waterfront. Can you explain how that would work?
Well, I think what would end up happening is you would have a marina that you don't have now. That's a functioning marina. I think that would be the difference that we would see if you're in the waterfront. You could actually there would be a facility, a manned facility for you to come to and dock at, and be able to go to the fish house and wherever else if you wanted to. There'd be opportunities to be on that dock and get down there. At this particular time, I don't think Mr. Russenberger's gone out there twice, and without having some kind of secured, some breakwater out there on the east end, it's just too dangerous. I mean, for the investment to put out there, because it's one storm and you can be all the money you put out there and the additional piers could be gone. So. I think he put the piers back, and then we had Ivan, and then it's sort of at that point been trying to figure out a resolution to get something put back out there. As far as the access, I mean, it's open to the public and everything else. I don't see any difference in what the general access is. There was some confusion at one time that it looked like that same state lease had access to part of Bartram Park. And I think one of the things when I talked to Mr. Russenberger, he made very clear was he was unaware, and he said, no, I don't want any part of Bartram Park. So I mean, from our standpoint, we would retain all of Bartram Park and the access. That's city, and it would remain city no matter what. We would have the ability to get to the waterfront there.
One of the things you campaigned a lot on was town halls, openness, input. Ann Hill has kind of called for a town hall on this. I think, if I remember correctly, this seems like a ripe issue where a lot of people disagree with the sale of the property. Have you looked at having a town hall on this topic?
I think we'd have to figure out exactly what the topic is. I mean, I think we'd have to figure out what the deal is, and since we don't have anything concrete that we're still working through because of some of the issues dealing with the leases and what was acquired, I don't think we have something at the time. We have a known, deal for the council to look at and the public to look at. I think that would be a good time for us to all talk about it. Otherwise, we're just talking about something that's speculative at this particular time.
Which is all part of waiting anyway. You're not going to do it in January, so.
Yeah.
Where's the city at on the Moffett-Nickel port study? And I know in another press conference you said they were going to look at.
I think it's supposed to be here.
It's late, but it's pending.
Okay, that was what I heard, and so I guess I thought it was supposed to be here sometime this month, based on what we talked about in December.
Is that costing any more money than was budgeted?
No. We haven't gotten it. The finalized version. I do know, at least in my I know there was some general discussion about what it would look like. I mean, I think the one thing that's clear is there's a desire to have a port, and again, it's the things I've told Amy. I think we're a niche port. I think the study will confirm that we're probably going to be a niche port, and we just need to find those niches that make the best sense for us, and then allow Amy to go, or Amy or whoever's the port director to go fill those as best as she can fill, so that they're compatible with downtown. And I made that very clear when I've met with Amy and taken a tour over there, that whatever we do going forward at the port, really, I want the port to be there. I want it to be successful. I want to generate revenue and create jobs, but I want it to do whatever it does to be compatible with what we've done downtown. Yes, Adam.
I walked in on you talking about this. You're not going to the inauguration because of other things you're doing. What are your expectations in regards to the new DeSantis administration coming in as far as Greater Pensacola, and all as far as they're working together? Do you have any feelings on that?
At this point, we want to get over there and work and find a way to figure out where we do going forward. We certainly think the last administration was saw the potential of Northwest Florida, and we hope that'll be the case for this administration. They certainly have been connected in a number of ways to individuals who are in Northwest Florida serving on the transition, so that's good. Obviously, the biggest challenge for them is they'll step into, and most of the Bay County, the everywhere that was affected all the way up to Mariana, they're very affected by the storm. So I think there's a lot of what they're doing in Northwest Florida for this particular year will be involved with Michael and repairs from Michael, and we certainly understand that. That's why I said earlier in the press conference that we're not looking for things to necessarily be a big year for Pensacola this year. Our big project has an ask to be anytime in the next 4 years, and so it's our expectation. We understand that the eastern portion of Northwest Florida may get more money this year. We just hope to be in line for money next year or the following year. So that's our goal and what we're doing going forward. We certainly look to establish a good working relationship with the DeSantis administration and what we can do, and try to do the best we can.
Well, I read his editorial just recently in the News Journal, and I found him very humble. I mean, he sounded as if he really is sincere about wanting to really do great things for Florida. And the next thing hit my mind is, well, what is our relationship like now? Even though I know the transition is in place.
We know several people that are part of it. One of the good things is I do have a close relationship with Jimmy Petronas, who is the CFO, who's on the cabinet, and we intend to use that to try to work to help us as we need to work to make the administration aware of what's going on in Pensacola. So I think having Jimmy there from Panama City is a great thing for Northwest Florida. We're very excited about him being there, and we'll continue to use him in other ways that we can. I know that Representative Gates has a strong relationship with the incoming governor. So again, we will look to work with the people that we know have ties to the administration, and look for us to develop a better relationship.
The ferries, obviously sitting. We have a government shutdown, so nothing is happening for the ferries. But do you have any timetable? How long to wait? Maybe this is more of a key question, but if
I think all of that's.
Point, we don't just wait, but
All of that is at this particular time in the Department of the Interior's hands. It's their system, it's their stuff, and as long as it is, we will participate with them, but we aren't the ones that are calling the shots on that. We're just a partner, and the primary lead is going to be the Department of the Interior, National Park Service. So they will continue to be the lead at this particular time. If something changes, we will certainly look and see, but at this time, I know that that's what they're planning to do. Obviously, also read the work in the News Journal over the weekend about the challenges we're having related to tourism with the the shutdown and the RV park not being open, and a variety of things not being open out there. Obviously, we'd like to see all that get back open. It's just a reminder, as I said before, that your local government is here working. we're here every day. We haven't shut down. We have to pass balanced budgets. We do, and we operate within those budgets.
What are their terms on that space? Is there a duration? I mean, I don't know what the parameters are on what our options are if they fail to get a contract for a new ferry operator.
I mean, the property still and the landing still remains ours. So, I mean, if something happened and the ferry was to go away, I would think it was ultimately it'd be a city asset we would have, and we'd continue to work. That's not what at this point we expect in any way to happen. I mean, our position or what we've been told before we got into the shutdown was that they were looking to have something implemented, and at this time, I think it's way too early to say that I mean, I'm sure in some ways it's affecting their ability to go out and get new bids and do that. So I'm sure that'll delay things slightly. But I have not heard anything from Dan that told me that this is going to delay things significantly one way or the other. Now, if it continues to slide and the shutdown continues to slide, maybe something happens. But at this particular time, we hope the federal government will get back and figure out what they need to do and move forward. I mean, there's no doubt that this hurts all of Escambia County when we have Fort Pickens shut down, and there are other things that we are impacted by the shutdown we'd like to see get back up and running.
The city planning board this week is going to be talking about amending the land code to create a historic preservation commission to preserve historic properties throughout the city. Do you have any thoughts or opinions on the criteria or how the city should preserve historic properties?
I saw that, and I mean, I look forward to working with that. I think there's no doubt that our history, we need to figure out how we maintain it, and that really helps us to maintain our culture and what we're doing. But at the same time, I don't want us to do anything that ultimately gets us out of the opportunity to grow and do new things. I think there has to be a balance. We want to retain what we look like, but we want to be able to do that without such an inability to really curtail the future. So I need to really see how that looks. There's one part that was brought up to me that I was a little concerned on. Somebody sent me over the weekend about properties and the fact that they were looking at calling historic structures anything that had been here over 50 years. If that's the case, the house I grew up in Cordova Park is about to become a historic structure. So, I don't think any of us were expecting some of those neighborhoods like Scenic Heights in those areas necessarily. How do we deal with that and now calling that historic or what we're working with within that? I think this is where we have to be careful. We want people to come in if they want to remodel houses and do what's there. Those things that I think are truly a part of our culture in what we've had, we would love to find a way to sustain and keep. I just think I'm willing to work, and I have heard some at least opinions from citizens, just some concerns over what was being called historic and what that would entail if they had to do any renovations to their property. Again, I love the house I grew up in. It probably could use a little renovation, but at this particular time, I don't see that necessarily as historic. I mean, there are properties downtown that I think are much more historic in the East Hill area and some of the other neighborhoods that we have. They're really in between those areas. And on the west side, we have some historic neighborhoods. Those I tend to think of historic, but I would like to see sort of how that comes out, and I want everyone to be able to participate and be able to have the housing they need and be able to do renovations they need to do, but at the same time find ways that we can preserve our culture.
What's the childhood home of a mayor of Pensacola? Of course it's historic.
I don't know how historic that is. We'll see what happens. I will say that what was that show they did, the house thing they did several years ago that was here? That house at 781 Canal Drive was actually the first house I ever grew up in. It was interesting seeing it redone on one of those redo shows. It was kind of interesting, but that was actually the house I first grew up in.
You opened by talking about Mayor Hayward being on the Triumph board now. Does that change your calculus on the possibility back as an ask, or do you still think that's pretty well decided not to go that route?
You know, I would like to still look at the Triumph this year. The bigger question there is going to be, what does Ken want to do? And I mean, I think he's committed to doing marine research. I don't know that he you know, you'd have to ask him, but the last conversation we had, I tended to think he was less optimistic about Triumph. I'll say that. I mean, he was less optimistic about Triumph than I was. And you know, I realize it can be challenging, but I don't know. I still want to make a go of it. I think it would be the great thing for us to do. And what he assured me was he in no way intends to curtail marine research. He just looks like he may want to find a different way to fund it other than Triumph.
Have you talked to Hayward since he got selected?
I have not. I've called him and I've texted him, but I have not heard back from him at this particular time. Hoping to catch up with him today. I just tried to get in touch with him on Sunday, so over the weekend I'm not sure.
Do we have a completion day on the fire station by the airport?
I think it's sometime here in January, February. I'm supposed to have a work day at the end of January. I imagine it looks like with the weather they've probably been pushed back, but there's a lot of work going on out there. I was just driving by there over the weekend. I live right around the corner from that new station, and so I'm excited to see it come up. And you talk about architectural, it definitely reaches our you know, I thought it was good. It's kind of funny. People, you know, I hear the stories. People asking if you're going to be able to order Taco Bell there while you know the other stuff. But you know, I think it was a good example of sort of harkening back to our past and putting that forward. So I think there's a lot of good things in the architecture, and I'm excited to see it finally finished and ready to be opened. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, how is the transition going between the former Mayor Hayward administration and yours coming in? Has that worked out pretty good?
Yeah, I would say for the most part, most of the handoff that was done between the two of us is sort of already happened. It was very short in the sense, you know, it would have been nice to have a little bit longer transition like the governor had before you actually get there, but having the 3 weeks went very fast, and so we spent much of December trying to catch up and just figure out where we are. It's now January. This is our first press conference in January and first full week of you know, I think last week we got a little bit into the new year. We started coming out of it, but this is really our first chance out of that. So we're moving forward. It's you know, we feel good, and our transition team has made a lot of inroads and seeing what we're doing. But overall, I feel very positive about where we've been able to pick up and learn from, and where we're making changes where we need to make changes. So I think that's a good thing. I do think we talked last week about some things in recognizing history that we have not recognized. So with two members of that 1955 JC's team in the audience now, I thought it was at least. I think the city's going to look to do some kind of recognition in February at the city council meeting at that time, and do some recognition in honor of what happened. I think that's another case of where there's a lot of hidden history that we have not been really publicizing. We should be publicizing. You know, I think that's just another example of some things we should be doing. The county recognized the team last year, and I think it's time for the city to do something to certainly recognize our champions from 1955. So I appreciate, and I see Pastor Augustine in the back there as well. So it's good to see. He snuck in on you behind you, but anyway, it's good to see him back there as well.
Yeah. Well, let me say this on that, Mr. Mayor. We have been humbled and honored by the recognition that the county gave us. But for the record, the previous city administration under Mayor Hayward was dutifully contacted much sooner than anyone else, and there were going back and forth, and there were questions, and the producers had to turn in their life history, and they did so, and they never got any response back from it. This is not to say that the mayor at that time was so adamantly against it, but he certainly wasn't for it. So we're humbled by the fact that you now, the new mayor, see it as being something important. Reverend Augustine and I, we still really trying to get our heads around this history-making event because we were 12 years old and we just wanted to play baseball. And that was our, and wanted to get out of Pensacola for a moment. So we didn't even think of foreseeing what has happened 60-some years later. And even though Reverend Augustine is much more cognizant of what's really going on here, but I'm still kind of dazzling about it. So we just want you to know we appreciate all your efforts because it was your efforts. And Commissioner May, I certainly want to give him credit, but he was not as forceful as our new mayor during the time that you were there. And I appreciate that. I really do.
Well, I think that those are the stories we want to tell. We got a lot of great stories here. We have a lot of great Pensacolians that have done a lot of things. We've told some of those stories. We've told them well, but we hadn't told all the stories, and we need to do a better job of telling all the stories. That was certainly a story that I was amazed that I was unaware of. If you hadn't seen the Long Time Coming, I highly encourage anyone here in the city of Pensacola to view that. It's a remarkable film, and it is an amazing story about several Pensacolians, and we certainly want to recognize the endeavor that they went through, and it's our intention to do that in February. So we'd love to do that.
And during the month of February, they are going to release it on DVD, and then the worldwide distributor is also going to move in and take over and do all of the things that you do to take advantage of all the platforms that are now available to get the word out. And if we get information before you, then I'll certainly pass that on to you.
Please do. We'll look forward to that. Are there any other questions? Well, thank you very much for being here today, and we'll look forward to. It was a shorter one without Rick, so I'm sure we'll see him next week. Jeremy, I'm sure he'll be back.